Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. Close the door, dim the lights just a little, and let me ask you something that may feel too intimate for daylight. When was the last time a woman looked at you as if you were both the mystery and the answer, long before your hand had even brushed hers? Not because you drove the louder car or flashed the thicker wallet, but because something in your presence quietly insisted she lean in, breathe deeper, stay a moment longer. I am not talking about tricks or lines. I am talking about the kind of gravitational pull that begins inside your own skin and travels across a room like a secret current. Most men believe seduction starts with touch, a hand on the small of her back, a first kiss stolen under porch light. But the most memorable seductions I have witnessed in 25 years of sitting with couples from every continent began with no contact at all. They began with a pause, a story half finished in the eyes, a voice that made her feel her own pulse before she even knew your name. Tonight we will walk through 5 chambers of that wordless art, step by step, breath by breath, so that by the end you will not need to reach for her. She will feel you reaching inside her imagination, and she will meet you there. Imagine you walk into a small dinner party on a Thursday that already feels too long. The room is loud with other people's opinions. Someone is explaining cryptocurrency to a woman who keeps glancing toward the door, and you, carrying the residue of your own day, feel the dull tug of wanting to disappear into your phone. You set the coat on the chair, you exhale, and instead of scanning for the easiest conversation, you stand still for 3 unhurried seconds. You let your shoulders drop as if you are taking off an invisible backpack. You feel the soles of your shoes against the hardwood. You notice the citrus note in the candle burning near the window. Only then do you lift your eyes. Across the room she is listening to a story she has already heard, nodding at the expected beats, but her fingers keep touching the rim of her glass in a tiny, restless circle. You register the circle. You do not stare, you simply let her movement arrive inside you like a small echo. Then you look away, because the first law of wordless seduction is that curiosity must feel generous, never greedy. You give her the privacy of your absence, and in doing so you create the first pocket of longing, the space where she can wonder, did he see me? That wonder is the first thread between you, and no skin has touched. Most men overfill this moment. They walk straight over, deliver a compliment that lands like a resume, and wonder why her eyes glaze. Seduction without touch begins with restraint, with the confidence that a single authentic observation is worth more than a monologue. So you stay where you are. You listen to the person in front of you, really listen, because nothing signals safety faster than undivided attention. While you listen, your body remains open, one hand visible, torso relaxed, chin neither tilted in dominance nor tucked in apology. You become a quiet island in the room's storm, and islands draw weary swimmers. After a few minutes you move not toward her yet, but toward the host's kitchen to refill a glass of water. En route you pass within 4 feet of her, close enough for her to feel the air shift, far enough that she does not need to armor herself. As you pass, you offer a small, closed-mouth smile, no teeth, no agenda, just the expression you might give a friend who once loved the same song you did. That smile says, I recognize you, without adding, now I'm here to claim you. It lands soft, and it lingers inside her longer than any opener you could have rehearsed. By the time you come back from the kitchen, the host is calling everyone to the table. Seats are unassigned, people shuffle awkwardly, balancing plates and pleasantries. You notice the chair beside hers is still empty, but you do not dive for it. Instead, you wait until the hesitation becomes a tiny ache in the group, and then you quietly take the seat directly across. Distance is your ally tonight. It lets her see your entire body language, the way your hands move when you laugh, the way your eyes crinkle before the rest of your face joins in. Distance also lets her imagination begin its ancient work of filling in the blanks, and imagination is always more generous than reality. As the salad is passed, someone asks you a question about your work. You answer in miniature stories rather than bullet points. You say, I spend my day translating numbers into narratives, which really means I spend my day listening for the story the numbers are too shy to tell. She glances up. She is a designer. She likes stories. You notice the glance, you honor it by letting your sentence finish, and then you turn your attention back to the person who asked. You do not grab the opening. You trust it will still be there later, slightly repent. This is the first lesson. Seduction is not pursuit, it is invitation. Every gesture must feel like a door left ajar, not a net thrown. When you talk, you speak to the whole table, but twice, only twice, you let your gaze drift to her eyes for the length of one heartbeat. Each time, you accompany the gaze with a tiny nod, as if to say, yes, I know you understand. The nod matters. It acknowledges the invisible thread without tugging it. By dessert, she is leaning ever so slightly forward when you speak, her fork suspended mid-air, her body unconsciously mirroring yours. Still no touch. Not even an accidental brush of elbows. Later in the living room, the music shifts to something slower, and the lights dim by one imperceptible degree. People sprawl on couches and floor cushions. The room becomes a loose constellation. You choose the floor, legs crossed, leaning against a bookshelf. She chooses the couch, arm above you, one bare ankle swinging. From this angle you cannot see her face unless she tips forward, which she now does every time you tell a story. The stories you choose are not about conquest. They are about small, tender failures, getting lost in Lisbon, misreading a train schedule in Tokyo, crying at a museum because a painting looked like your mother's handwriting. Vulnerability offered without demand is irresistible. It gives her permission to exhale her own hidden stories. At one point you excuse yourself to the balcony for air. You do not look back, but you leave the sliding door half open, the way you left every other door tonight. After 30 seconds she appears, carrying 2 glasses of water she did not have to bring. She says, "I thought you might need this." You smile, accept 1 glass, and step aside so she can choose her place against the railing. The night smells of jasmine and grilled meat from the restaurant below. You speak about the first scent that ever made you homesick. Your grandmother's attic, mothballs and cedar. She tells you hers, the salt line on her father's coat after he came back from fishing. The words float between you like shared breath. Inside, someone turns the music louder. Outside, the city hums like a distant lullaby. Neither of you moves to rejoin the party. The silence that follows is not awkward. It is collaborative, the way 2 painters might step back from the same canvas. She studies the skyline. You study her profile in peripheral vision. When you finally speak, it is to ask a question that sounds almost offhand. What do you miss most about the person you were before the world told you who to be? The question is gentle, but it lands deep. She inhales, holds the breath, releases it in a small laugh that is almost a sigh. She answers, "The way I used to dance alone in my room without checking the mirror." You nod slowly, as if her answer were a gift you will unwrap later in private. Then you say softly enough that she has to lean in, "I'd like to see that version of you sometime." You do not push for a date, a number, a plan. You simply let the possibility shimmer. Back inside, coats are being retrieved. Goodbyes tumble through the hallway. You find yours, thank the host, and step onto the porch. The night air is cooler now. You slip your hands into your pockets because the story you have started needs an ending that does not involve a desperate handshake or an awkward hug. She follows a beat later, says your name as if testing its weight. You turn, she smiles. This time the smile is hers, not borrowed from social scripts, and says, "I still dance, you know. Just not where anyone can see." You tilt your head, acknowledge the confession, and reply, "I'd keep my eyes closed if that helps." The sentence is playful, but the undertow is real. She laughs, says goodnight, walks to her car. You do not watch her taillights disappear. You walk the opposite direction, so the last image she holds of you is you walking away sure-footed, not chasing. The first part of wordless seduction is complete. You have offered presence without pressure, curiosity without consumption, distance threaded with promise. Inside her the seed of intrigue has cracked open, not because you performed magic, but because you refused to rush the ordinary miracle of being seen. And now, as the streetlights flicker and your footsteps echo, we step deeper into the architecture of longing, into voice, timing, and the exquisite art of saying almost nothing at exactly the right moment. The next morning you wake before the alarm. The faint taste of last night's jasmine still on your tongue, the residue of a conversation that never touched skin yet somehow clings to your pulse. You lie there in that tender half, dark, and notice how your body already anticipates her, the way your chest lifts a fraction higher, as if rehearsing the next breath you might share. This is the second chamber, the voice. Not the words you will choose later, but the tone that will carry them. Because seduction divorced from touch relies on sound waves the way sailors once relied on stars, an invisible map that can either lead her safely to your shore or leave her adrift. Before you reach for the phone, you let the room stay quiet. You feel the vibration of your own voice inside your ribs, the way a singer hums to warm the instrument. You speak one sentence out loud, any sentence. Maybe the jasmine last night was louder than the music, and you listen to how it lands in the air of your bedroom. Does it fall flat, or does it linger like smoke? You adjust the timbre until the sentence feels round, velvety, like something you'd want whispered to you in a dim hallway. This is not performative, it is intimate rehearsal. Most men skip this step and wonder why their texts feel like cardboard. Later, when you do send the first message, you do not begin with, "Hey, it was great meeting you." You begin with continuation. "The jasmine followed me home, and now my kitchen smells like the balcony at 12:07 am. No greeting, no punctuation begging for reply. Just a postcard from the moment you both inhabited." You send it and let it float. You do not watch the 3 dots. The 3 dots are her private shoreline, and you are not a lifeguard. 43 minutes pass, enough time for her to read, smile, wonder, read. She answers, "I woke up with the song from the living room stuck in my head, but slower, like underwater." Notices she is already collaborating in the rhythm you set. Now the dance of latency begins. You could reply instantly, but that would collapse the delicious tension you are cultivating. Instead, you wait until mid-afternoon, when the day has roughened her edges just enough that a soft sound feels medicinal. You send a voice note, 6 seconds, no more. In it you simply hum 4 bars of the song off key on purpose, then stop. You offer no explanation. The vulnerability of the cracked note is the seduction. It says, I do not need to be perfect to be close. She listens twice, 3 times, pressing the phone to her ear like a seashell. The phone stores the vibration of your larynx. Her body stores it too. That evening you meet friends for drinks in a bar that smells of cedar and spilled rosemary gin. The place is loud, but you sit at the corner where the acoustics soften. You text her, "If you were here, I'd save you the seat with the good echo." She replies immediately, this time a single emoji of a fox. Translation: I'm intrigued and I know how to slip into places unnoticed. You smile, pocket the phone, and do not write back. Instead you let the absence of your response become the next sentence. Around 10 o'clock she appears, coat slung over one arm, cheeks flushed from the cold. She does not ask if she can join. She simply pulls out the chair beside you and sits. The friend group absorbs her without friction, but you feel the air change, like a string quartet gaining a cello. She orders a drink she has never tried before, trusting the bartender's whim, and you recognize the same appetite for wrist that blinked awake on the balcony. Conversation rolls. You do not speak more than anyone else, but when you do, your voice stays low enough that she has to angle her body toward you. This is choreography. Every degree she turns is another inch of consent. You speak about a time you got locked inside a museum overnight, not as a brag, but as a meditation on darkness and echo. You describe the way your footsteps sounded like someone else walking beside you, and how by morning you were no longer sure which set of footsteps was yours. As you speak, you drop the volume at the end of each sentence, so the final word is almost a whisper. She leans in further. The rest of the table fades. At one point her shoulder brushes yours, accidental, inevitable. You do not flinch, but you do not linger either. You simply let the contact exist, like a comma in a sentence that has not yet decided its ending. Then you shift your weight away, creating space again. The withdrawal is not rejection, it is punctuation. It teaches her body that your proximity is never owed, always chosen. Later, walking to the subway, the street is quiet except for the soft click of her boots. You walk side by side but not touching, matching her pace without comment. She asks why you sent the voice note humming. You answer, because some songs are too shy for lyrics. She laughs, but the laugh catches in her throat, becomes something softer. At the entrance she stops, looks up at you. The moment teeters on the edge of expectation, a kiss, a number exchange, a promise. Instead you lift your hand, not to her face but to the collar of your own coat. You adjust it slowly, deliberately, as if the night air were a scarf you are tightening. The gesture is intimate because it is self-contained. You are dressing yourself in front of her, and she is allowed to watch. She says, "You're good at endings." You smile, turn, and descend the stairs without looking back. On the platform you send one last message. Seth travels through the underwater song. She responds with a single voice note. 5 seconds of silence followed by the softest exhale, almost a sigh. That exhale is her hand reaching across the dark city. Palm open, no demand. You press the phone to your ear and close your eyes. 2 bodies, 2 boroughs, 1 shared frequency. You have now practiced the second art, using voice as caress, silence as silhouette. You have shown her that sound can travel along the skin without ever making contact, that absence can be as articulate as presence, and in the hush that follows her exhale, you prepare for the third chamber, the slow revelation of scent and memory, where seduction becomes not what you say next, but what you allow her to remember when you are nowhere in sight. The following afternoon the city smells like rain that hasn't yet decided to fall. You are walking up Lafayette, carrying a small paper bag from a perfumery so discreet it has no sign. Inside rests a single vial wrapped in black tissue, amber liquid, cedar heart, whisper of iris. You did not buy it for her, you bought it for the story the two of you began on the balcony. The one that now needs a second chapter written in molecules rather than metaphors, because when touch is off the table, scent becomes the clandestine handshake between nervous systems. It bypasses the mind and speaks directly to the archive of longing we each carry in the soft tissue behind the sternum. You text her a photograph of the bag, nothing else. 10 minutes later she replies, "My knees just went soft." What is it? You do not answer the question. Instead you write, "I'm walking past the library lions. Meet me on the steps if your afternoon has a hole in it." No emoji, no urgency. Just an open skylight in the day. She arrives in a charcoal coat, hair twisted up with a pencil, cheeks flushed from the sprint across 4 avenues. You sit 3 steps apart, the granite cool beneath you. From your pocket you produce a white linen handkerchief, old school, your grandfather's monogram, faded but present. Onto the corner you let a single drop fall. The air is damp, so the scent rises slowly, like a tide coming in under moonlight. You fold the handkerchief twice, then extend it, not to her, but between you, resting it on the step like an offering neither of you is meant to claim just yet. She looks at the cloth, then at you. You say nothing. After a breath she leans forward, elbows on knees, and inhales. The sound is almost imperceptible, but you hear it because you are listening with your entire ribcage. Her eyelids flutter, she is for 1 second elsewhere. You watch the memory wash over her, the grandmother's attic, the cedar chest, the mothballs she mentioned the other night. Only now it is braided with the iris note you added, which reminds her of the first wallet she ever abandoned. Scent is a time machine, and you have just handed her the key. You pick up the handkerchief, fold it once more, and slip it back into your pocket. The gesture says, "This moment belongs to us." But I will carry it for now. She does not protest. She only asks, what will you do with it? You answer, I'll let it breathe in my drawer. So every morning when I reach for socks, I'll remember how rain hesitates. The sentence is about you, yet it places her inside the daily choreography of your life. She swallows, looks away toward the traffic, but her fingers keep smoothing the hem of her coat, as if touching something that is no longer there. Later that week, you leave the city for a day trip up the Hudson. You send no announcement, only a single photograph taken from the train window, a swath of silver water, a lone red tugboat. Caption, the river remembers everything we forget. She responds with a voice memo recorded while walking across a creaky wooden floor. I once lost a diary on a boat like that. Sometimes I imagine it still traveling, page by page, into other people's lives. Her voice is quieter than usual, as if she is speaking in the dark. You listen 3 times, then slip the phone into your breast pocket, right above the handkerchief. 2 relics now thump gently against your heart. It is evening when you return. The city steams, taxis hiss. You are standing outside the bodega on her block, debating whether proximity is generosity or trespass. You decide to risk generosity. You text, I'm 2 doors down with a single perfect peach and no plan. She buzzes you up. The apartment smells of turpentine and coffee. Canvases lean against every wall like shy party guests. She is barefoot, paint on one cheek. You hold up the peach, its skin blushed almost indecently, and say, I thought we could share it without cutting. She laughs, retrieves 2 napkins, sets them on the small table, then changes her mind and replaces them with a single plate. The gesture is minute but electric. 1 plate means mouths will meet in the middle. Still, you do not rush. You wash the peach under warm water, roll it gently to awaken the scent. The room fills with summer. You hand it to her. She takes a bite, eyes closing involuntarily. Juice slips over her lip. You do not wipe it, you merely watch, letting the moment breathe. When she opens her eyes, she finds you're still on her mouth. The silence stretches, tender as taffy. Only then do you reach, not toward her, but toward the shelf behind her, where an old portable speaker sits. You scroll to a song that is mostly rainfall and piano. Press play. Set the volume so low it becomes atmosphere. You sit on the floor, back against the couch, legs stretched out. She remains at the table, finishes the peach, licks her thumb with unself-conscious grace. The distance between you is maybe 6 feet, but it is alive, humming. She asks what you are thinking. You answer. That scent is the only time travel we're allowed without consequence. She considers this, then walks to a drawer, pulls out a tiny bottle of turpentine and a scrap of cotton. She dabs the cotton, walks over, and kneels 2 feet away. She extends the cotton, saying, then come back with me. The turpentine smells of elementary school art class, of being 7 and fearless. You inhale, and suddenly you are there, crayons melting in sunlit windows, the joy of getting your hands irreversibly dirty. You exhale, meet her gaze, and understand that you have both agreed to trespass gently into each other's archives. You stand to leave before the moment demands more. At the door, you remove the handkerchief from your pocket, unfold it once, and let the cedar iris ghost brush the air between you. You do not offer it this time. You simply hold it to your own face for 1 slow inhale, eyes closed. When you open them, she is watching as if you have just read her a poem in a language she did not know she understood. You fold the cloth, tuck it away, and say, sleep well. She answers by touching her own sternum, a wordless promise to keep the echo safe. The scent will fade from the linen by morning, but it will live on in the folds of memory. The way certain songs survive in the body long after the radio is off. You have learned that seduction without touch is sometimes the art of leaving the gentlest trace, never a mark, always an invitation. And as you descend the stairs, the peach sweetness still on your tongue, you ready yourself for the 4th chamber, where distance itself becomes a playground, and absence is no longer empty, but creatively, deliberately alive. The next 3 days you disappear, not dramatically, not petulantly, but with the same deliberateness a violinist shows when lowering the bow after the final note. You do not vanish. You simply recede to the exact degree that allows her curiosity to lean forward. No texts, no stories, no accidental sightings at the bodega. You go about your life, a long run at dawn when the bridges are empty. A work call where you close your eyes and speak as if the client can smell your conviction through the fiber optic cable. A night with friends where you laugh so hard your ribs remind you they are capable of joy without agenda. Each experience is ordinary, yet each is also quietly annotated for her, stored like pressed flowers you may or may not choose to share. On the 3rd evening you send a postcard, not a digital facsimile, but an actual 4x6 photograph of the Hudson at dusk, the red tugboat now a smudge against silver. On the back you write only, the river kept the diary page after all. Yours, if you still want it. You sign with your initial no-return address. You drop it in a mailbox far from her neighborhood so the postmark feels like happenstance. The gesture is small, but it carries the weight of every mile you did not cross. It says I can be near without crowding. It says longing has a geography, and I am willing to map it slowly. 2 days later the postcard arrives. She sends you a picture of it propped against her coffee cup, steam curling like a question mark. No caption. You do not reply. Instead, that night you walk to the park where the linden trees are shedding their perfume like secrets. You record a 10-second video of the branches moving under streetlight. The sound of leaves more articulate than language. You post it to your stories, visible to everyone, but you know she will see it because stories are where modern lovers leave breadcrumbs. You add no text. You let the rustle speak. Within minutes she reacts with a single fox emoji. You smile in the dark. The playground is open. The following afternoon you are working from a cafe whose windows face a narrow side street. You sit where the light fractures across your table in pale rectangles. You are reading something about migratory birds that navigate by magnetic fields when you feel her before you see her. Not telepathy, just the unconscious choreography of two bodies that have begun to orbit. She walks past the window, stops, doubles back. You look up slowly as though the moment surprises you as much as it does her. She carries a canvas bag, paintbrushes bristling like antennae. She says, "I was just heading home," and you answer, "I was just reading about birds who never ask for directions." The symmetry hangs between you like a mobile turning in a breeze neither of you controls. You invite her in, not with words but by shifting your chair so the empty one opposite sits directly in the sunbeam. She sits. The cafe is quiet. The espresso machine exhales like an old man remembering youth. You do not ask how she found you. The question would puncture the game. Instead, you slide the book across so she can read the paragraph about magnetic fields. She does, lips moving slightly. When she looks up, her eyes are bright with the private pleasure of discovering you read the same kinds of impossible things she does. You close the book, slide it aside. The distance between your hands on the table is exactly the width of the shadow cast by your coffee cup. You leave it there. Conversation unfolds the way origami does, when done by two people who trust paper slowly. Precisely, each crease deliberate. She tells you she has started a new canvas. Something about the moment before a dive, how the body remembers the water before the skin does. You ask what color that memory is. She says, "The color of sound you sent me at 2 a.m. You nod, acknowledging the echo. Then she leans back, crosses her arms and asks, "Are you ever going to tell me why you disappeared?" You smile, not mischievous, simply truthful. "I didn't disappear. I gave you the gift of missing." The sentence is soft, but it lands like a pebble in still water. She absorbs the ripple. Outside, the sky begins a lazy shift toward evening. You both sense the hour as animals do, without clocks. You stand, gather your book, your coat. She does the same. At the door you pause, let her exit first. The sidewalk is crowded, yet you walk a careful half-step apart so your arms never brush. You are heading in opposite directions. This is understood without declaration. At the corner you stop, she turns. The pause is thick, sweet. You say, "If you walk north, you'll meet the river at 64-7. The light does something unrepeatable." She answers, "If you walk south, you'll find the bookstore that stays open late and smells like your grandfather's attic." You nod, accept the parallel paths. You do not ask to join her. You do not offer to follow. You simply lift your hand, not to touch her, but to the place above your heart where the handkerchief once lived. The gesture is a benediction, a bookmark. She mirrors it, palm to her own sternum. Two magnetic fields aligning without contact. Then you walk. Each step is deliberate but not dragged. You do not look back. The absence of your gaze is the final gift. Halfway down the block you hear her call your name, soft, experimental. You stop, turn. She is still at the corner, coat flaring slightly in the wind. She says nothing, only raises one eyebrow in a question older than language. "Are you sure?" You answer by smiling, slow and certain, then continue walking. The smile is not dismissal, it is an ellipsis. It says, "I am sure enough for both of us right now." Later, in the bookstore that does indeed smell of cedar and myth, you find a slim volume on celestial navigation. You buy it, not for the content, but for the margin where you will write a single line from tonight. You do not text her. You let the night itself deliver the message. Distance is not a void to be filled, but a canvas to be respected. In that respect, desire finds its truest contour. Neither starvation nor feast, but the exquisite ache of anticipation. Tomorrow the fifth chamber will open, the one where all the threads converge is scent, voice, absence, memory. It will not be a grand finale. It will be a quiet returning, the way breath returns after a long dive. You are ready. She is already waiting at the edge of the water, toes curled over the brink, heart loud in her ears. Sunday arrives pale and slow, the kind of morning that feels like the city has turned the volume knob all the way down. You wake not with a plan but with a certainty. Today the threads must meet their knot. Not because you have run out of patience, but because patience itself has ripened into inevitability. You make coffee the way your grandfather taught you, boiling water left to cool 30 seconds before it kisses the grounds, because ritual steadies the pulse. While it brews, you open the drawer where the handkerchief has rested since the night of the peach. The cedar iris ghost is fainter now, more memory than perfume, yet still awake enough to make your chest tighten. You fold it once, slip it into your pocket. Then you take the small book on celestial navigation and write on the flyleaf, "For the girl who once danced alone." You sign with the date and the hour. You text nothing. Instead you walk. The city is forgiving at this hour. Even the pigeons seem hungover. You head north toward the river, timing your arrival to the moment the light does its unrepeatable trick. Sun low, water molten, sky the color of bruised peaches. You sit on the same bench where you once recorded the linden trees. Today they are quieter, leaves heavy with last night's humidity. You place the book beside you, spine up, like a cat waiting to be stroked. Then you wait, not anxiously, you wait the way a lighthouse waits, because ships who need it already know the coordinates. She arrives in sneakers and the charcoal coat, hair loose now, paint still under one fingernail, though she has clearly showered. She carries nothing except her own breathing. She does not ask how you knew she would come. She simply sits, leaving exactly the width of the book between you. Silence settles, comfortable as old wool. After a minute she reaches for the book, reads the inscription. She closes it, holds it to her chest, eyes on the water. Neither of you speaks for a long while. Words at this point would be redundant. The air itself is articulate. Eventually she says, soft as the gull overhead, I kept the postcard in my sketchbook. It bled, a little ink made a ghost of the tugboat. You nod. The bleed is not a flaw, it is evidence of travel. You remove the handkerchief from your pocket, unfold it once, and let the faintest breath of cedar rise between you. She inhales, smiles with half her mouth. Then she does something you did not script. She lifts the cloth to her own pulse point, presses it there for 3 seconds, and hands it back. The gesture is both benediction and receipt. You have, without touching her, allowed her to wear your scent and return it transformed. The light shifts again, now more silver than gold. You stand, she follows. You walk along the pier until the planks creak like old bones. At the end you stop. She stands beside you, hands deep in coat pockets. You speak finally, but quietly, as if the river itself were eavesdropping. I used to think seduction was a line I drew towards someone else. Now I think it's a circle we agree to walk, widening and tightening at will. She considers this, then nods. The nod is small, seismic. You turn to face her, not squarely, but at the angle two mirrors might choose when they decide to reflect something beautiful. You say, I would like to keep walking that circle with you. No destination, just the slow orbit. Your voice cracks on the word orbit, not from fear but from the sheer torque of honesty. She hears the crack, and it seems to please her more than any polished sentence could. She answers, I'd like to see how quiet we can be together. The phrasing is perfect, not how loud, how bright, how fast, how quiet. You offer your elbow, not as gallantry but as architecture. She threads her arm through. Coat sleeve brushing coat sleeve, the first sustained contact of skin on fabric. Yet it feels less like beginning and more like continuation, as if the arm link had always existed and you have only now noticed. You walk back along the pier, slow as the sun's descent. Conversation is minimal, a comment on the way gulls tilt their wings, a shared laugh at a toddler chasing bubbles farther up the path. Each word is deliberate, each silence deliberate too. At the subway entrance you stop. The bench where you first waited is visible in the distance, now occupied by 2 teenagers sharing earbuds. You face her, you say, I'm going to take the train home. You could come or you could not. Either way, the circle stays open. The invitation is gentle, final. She studies your face, not searching for tricks, simply memorizing. Then she steps closer, close enough that you feel the warmth of her exhale on your cheek. Still no kiss. Instead she speaks into the small space between your mouths. I'll take the next carriage. Same direction, different door. Let's see what the river looks like from underground. You nod, release her arm, descend. The platform is nearly empty. You stand at the far end. She appears a moment later at the near one. The train arrives with a sigh of brakes. You board, she boards. Through the windows you watch each other as the carriages pull away. The tunnel swallows the light, but you still feel the tether. Thin, tensile, alive. Somewhere under the river the train slows, lights flicker. In that brief strobe you see her silhouette lift a hand to the window. You mirror it. Palm to glass, city rushing underneath. No touch, yet the vibration travels. When the train surfaces again, the river is visible through the grating, black and quick, reflecting the last of the day. You stay standing until your stop. She stays standing until hers. You do not text when you exit. She does not text when she exits. The circle has widened again, but you both know how to walk it. And somewhere folded in a coat pocket and tucked inside a sketchbook, 2 small relics, handkerchief and postcard, carry the echo of every mile you have not yet traveled together. Here's to the quiet returning. Here's to circles without corners. Here's to the kind of seduction that never needs a door, because it was never about entry, it was about invitation.